passionate curiosity, and it really resonates with me. So I guess that's why Claire and Cathy asked me to come and share a little story with you that I have. And the story I would like to share with you is a meeting that I had with a friend of mine who is now 97 years of age. And I made a film about this man and his life, and he's 97 in November. And the project started after a meeting, a chance serendipitous meeting in a cafe in Paris 3.5 years ago, when I was sitting with a really good friend of mine, having dinner and having a chat, and we were talking about yoga, we were talking about consciousness, awakening, the projects that we were interested in, the things that we were doing, and she was also a filmmaker. So the tables are very close together in these little cafes in Paris, and this old man was sitting next to us and started to ask us some questions about yoga and meditation and what it was all about. So we ended up having a glass of wine with him and a conversation with him, and then we moved on to filmmaking. And he told me that he had once directed Alfred Hitchcock in a photo shoot, and that his whole career had been involved with photography, and he used to be a Hollywood correspondent in the 1930s. So I'm thinking, 1930s, how old is this guy? And I thought at the time he was probably 70. Turns out then he was 91. So a relationship formed, and he told me he was getting into this whole thing of Twitter and Skype and Facebook, and which is really amazing for a man of his age. So I got more involved in reading his book and asked him, could I make a film about him? And maybe we could meet sometime. And his response was, what are you doing on Wednesday? Well, that particular week I had no money. I think I had about a spare €100. So me and a friend got a €19 flight to Paris, and off we went to meet him and stayed with him there for 3 days. What came next was a proposal that I put in with the Irish Film Board, and they gave me some development money, and the money was meant to develop the story. But as John was 92, oh, you're all getting soaked. As John was 92, there wasn't really a whole lot of time to waste, so we followed him to New York and we started to begin filming. His life is quite extraordinary. He's one of the last, oh, this is great. Hi. His life is extraordinary because he's like the last living journalist who covered the coverage of D-Day and the photographs that Robert Capa took of the Omaha landing on the beach. He was also really inspired and involved with covering the war in Vietnam, the war in Korea, and right up to more present day, the war that we've had recently in Iraq and Afghanistan. So he's very passionately involved in spreading a message of peace and hope and conflict resolution. So that's where we really started to connect with each other. Anyway, in New York, I managed to meet a lot of photographers, world-class photojournalists who've really spent a lot of their time on the front line of war and seen some really intense atrocities. And I started to wonder what it was that made these people tick, that would actually literally risk their lives to tell the truth and get a story out there. So I began to interview these people and meet them and spend time with them and get inside their heads and try to understand a little bit about what they were doing with their lives. Then I came back to Dublin, and of course there was no money left. So limitations and obstacles started to become the nature of this whole project. But I really felt that there was energy in what I was doing and that the story needed to be told, and I'd also made a commitment to John, and it was my duty to fulfill that commitment. But I had no idea how we were going to do it at this point. So a friend told me about crowdfunding. I didn't even know what crowdfunding was. This is like, I suppose, 2 years ago. So I started a crowdfunding project on Indiegogo. I think at the time there was maybe 10 projects of the nature of film on Indiegogo. So I did a 90-day campaign and managed to raise €40,000, which was kind of incredible at the time.
Still incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. And a lot of the support came from the journalist world because they felt that the message that we were trying to get out there was really important and needed to be told. So the film became so much more about John. It became so much more about what I was trying to express through the making of this film. It became about the message. And the message I was really wanting to share, and John was really wanting to share, is that it's really time to resolve conflict in the world, and that we need to move beyond that and live together in love and move through all our fears and move into reality of peace with each other. So that became the message of the film. Anyway, we managed to get the film into a couple of festivals, and just recently in February it won Best Irish Documentary in the Dublin Jameson Film Festival. So that was great. Now what? Well, the struggle continues getting the film out there, because it's my first feature film that I've directed. I've been in the film business for years. I'm predominantly a yoga teacher, although my history and my background has always been in film. So the interesting thing is that a lot of the people who have interest in the film have not been through the normal channels where I would expect to exhibit a project like this. So, like here, for example, talking about it at Body and Soul, we're also going to be showing it at a classical music festival on the 4th of July in Umbria. It's going to be in the Photo Ireland exhibition that's traveling around the country in July. And if you'd like to see the film and meet John, it's going to be screened at the IFI on the 16th of July. One little story I'd like to tell you about John, just so you get a feel for what kind of man he is. He is 97 in November. He's had 3 wives. Each wife has been for exactly 20 years, and each one have died of natural causes. When I met him, he was single and desperate to meet a lady, and his first words to me was, if only I was 50 years younger. Anyway, 2 years into the project, when I started to lose a little bit of what the story of this film was going to be about, I was in Thailand, where I live and often teach yoga when I'm not here. And I got a phone call from him one day saying, hey kid, I've got to tell you something really amazing's happened. And I was like, okay, what's that? And he goes, I've fallen in love. And I'm like, okay, he's 93 at this point, and he goes, but the best news is it's reciprocated. I've met a beautiful younger woman, and she's 87 years old, and we're madly in love. So the whole film took a complete turn, and yes, it's about war and the coverage of conflict, but it's also a love story about finding love at the age of 94 and never really feeling that it's too late. So anyway, if you'd like to come and see it, 16th of July in the IFI, and thanks for listening.
What's it called?
It's called, oh, good question. It's called Get the Picture.
Oh, I love it.